Aloha and mahalo for joining. This is an informational presentation by the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Aquatic Resources, or DAR, on proposed amendments to Hawaii Administrative Rules, abbreviated as HAR, Chapter 13-75, Rules Regulating the Possession and Use of Certain Fishing Gear, and Chapter 13-60.4, Rules Relating to the West Hawai'i Regional Fishery Management Area, Hawai'i. We will review the sections being amended in numerical order, first showing the existing rule, then showing the proposed changes, and lastly, the new rule as amended. The primary change to the rules removes the existing laynet registration requirement and implements a new laynet permit for the use and possession of laynets. The purpose of this change will be to promote better compliance, to enhance enforceability, to streamline management, and to provide stronger statistical data regarding usership. In 2021, the department successfully petitioned the Hawaii State Legislature for expanded legislative authority, allowing us to make these amendments to HAR Chapters 13-75 and 13-60.4. Further, since we are taking these chapters through the rulemaking process, we are using it as an opportunity to include additional housekeeping amendments to each chapter that we have identified in order to get the rules up to date and relevant. We'll start with Chapter 13-75, Rules Regulating the Possession and Use of Certain Fishing Gear. Section 1, Definitions. The department has received inquiries about what constitutes a freshwater stream for the purposes of the laynet rule. The department has interpreted the existing rule to prohibit laynet fishing in any stream, canal, or other channelized body of surface water through which freshwater flows or is designed to flow, regardless of the actual salinity of the water. We have also received inquiries regarding the definitions of throw net and multi-panel laynet. So, in response to these inquiries, we are proposing to add 3 definitions to this section: definitions for freshwater stream, multi-panel laynet, and throw net. Section 8, Firearms. The current rule includes a provision that allows the take of sharks with firearms in the state. However, the legislature passed Act 51 in 2021 that prohibits intentionally or knowingly killing a shark within state marine waters. Act 51 took effect on January 1st, 2022. So, the proposed amendment would delete sharks from the rule in order to comply with the new law. Section 12, Gill nets. The proposed amendments to this section are to clarify that it is unlawful for any person to leave a gill net unattended for any amount of time, and that the person using the gill net must visually inspect the net within 2 hours of deployment, and must release any threatened, endangered, prohibited, or unwanted species. Here is what the original rule currently looks like, and here are the proposed amendments. As you can see, the amendments essentially shift the wording around and clarify some of the language within the rule. Also, this will apply to all gill nets, including gill nets used for laynet fishing, surround net fishing, or other fishing methods requiring the use of a gill net. This is what the final gill net rule would look like as amended. Section 12.2, Akule nets. The current rule prohibits non-commercial fishers from taking akule with any net, including throw nets, with a stretched mesh of less than 2 3/4 inches. The proposed amendment would allow the use of legal throw nets, which must have a stretched mesh of at least 2 inches, to take akule. It is uncommon to catch akule with a throw net, but it can occur, and the department believes that this allowance would not result in adverse impacts to the resource. Here is what the final akule net rule would look like as amended. Section 12.4, Laynets. The current laynet rule requires all laynets to be registered with the department. Registration is a one-time requirement. While the current rule requires net owners to report when a registered net is lost, destroyed, sold, traded, stolen, given away, or otherwise no longer the property of the registered owner, in practice this is rarely reported. As a result, the department does not have a good estimate of the number of laynets in use or the number of fishers actively using their nets each year. In contrast, the proposed annual laynet permit would allow the department to track the number of permitted laynet fishers on a yearly basis. The proposed laynet permit would also encourage increased compliance with laynet regulations and help the department to crack down on the illegal use of laynets. Unlike a registration, a permit is revocable. For example, under the current rule, if a person has been convicted of a laynet violation, the department has no way of prohibiting them from registering and using a new laynet. However, under the proposed rule, laynet users could lose their permit if convicted of a violation, providing greater incentive to comply with the law. The department proposes charging a $25 permit fee paid at first issuance of the permit and each year upon renewal of the permit, as well as a $10 duplicate permit fee. These fees will be a means to offset the costs of administering the laynet permit. However, fees may be waived upon request for Hawaii residents eligible for benefits under the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Removing the laynet registration requirement would significantly reduce the burden on laynet fishers as well as DAR staff. Under the current rule, fishers must contact DAR to register each laynet they would like to use, and DAR staff assign a unique registration number to each laynet that is registered and enter it into a database. Under the proposed amendment, a fisher would only need to obtain a permit once a year, and they would be able to obtain and use multiple laynets under their permit. So rather than each net having a unique registration number, the proposed rule would require each laynet to be labeled with the laynet user's permit number. The current laynet rule allows fishers to leave a laynet unattended for up to a half hour. This allowance makes enforcement difficult, as officers from the Department's Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement, or DOCARE, must observe an unattended laynet for 30 minutes before determining that a violation has occurred. Further, monk seals, turtles, and other marine life can become entangled and die during the half-hour period of unattendance. The proposed amendments require the laynet to be attended for the entire time it is deployed, and clarifies that a laynet will be considered unattended if the laynet or its attached surface buoys are not within eyesight of the laynet permit holder using the net. Section 12.5, State Waters around Moloka'i, Special Rules. The proposed amendments are necessary to implement the statewide laynet permit requirement and remove the existing statewide laynet registration requirement. However, the amendments to this section will not change the unique place-based laynet regulations established for Moloka'i. Here are the proposed amendments. And here is what the final amended rule will look like. Chapter 13-75 also includes a number of miscellaneous housekeeping amendments as mentioned earlier. Section 13-75-2 and 2.5 are being amended and added, respectively, for uniformity with other chapters, to reflect current penalty authority, and to recognize asset forfeiture as an enforcement tool for DOCARE officers. Further, we're also making other minor formatting and grammatical corrections throughout the chapter. Moving on to the changes for HAR Chapter 13-60.4, West Hawai'i Regional Fishery Management Area, Hawai'i, commonly referred to as the WRFMA. Section 3, Definitions. Here we're adding the same definition for multi-panel laynet as in the previous chapter discussed earlier in this presentation, HAR Chapter 13-75. Section 5, subsection C6, activities prohibited within the Kaloko Honokohau Fish Replenishment Area. The amendments to this section remove references to registered nets. Here is what the final rule would look like as amended. Section 6. Laynet registration and use requirements. Similar to the special laynet rules for Moloka'i reviewed earlier in this presentation, these proposed amendments are necessary to implement the statewide laynet permit requirement and remove the existing statewide laynet registration requirement, but they will not change the unique place-based regulations for West Hawai'i. The original rule makes it unlawful to possess or use a laynet that has not been registered. The amended rule makes it unlawful to possess or use a laynet in state waters without first obtaining a laynet permit pursuant to HAR Section 13-75-12.4 that we also reviewed earlier in this presentation. The current rule requires identification tags with the laynet registration number, and the amended rule requires tags with the laynet user's permit number. Additionally, tags will no longer be provided by the department. However, the department will provide instructions on how users can fashion their own tags to comply with the rule. The current rule allows laynet users to leave a laynet unattended for up to 30 minutes. Under the amended rule, fishers will be prohibited from leaving a deployed laynet unattended for any period of time, mirroring the amendments to HAR Chapter 13-75. Also identical to Chapter 13-75, the proposed amendments to HAR 13-60.4 also include an amendment to Section 8 and an addition of a Section 8.5 for uniformity with other chapters to reflect current penalty authority and to recognize asset forfeiture as an enforcement tool for doe care officers. Further, we're also making other minor formatting and grammatical corrections throughout this chapter. On Wednesday, August 24th, 2022, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., the department will be holding a hybrid, virtual, in-person, statewide public hearing on the proposed amendments that were discussed in this presentation. If you do not wish to testify but want to watch the public hearing, you can log on to the DAR YouTube page using the first address on the slide ending in DAR YouTube channel. If you wish to testify via Zoom, you may sign up to testify using the second address on the slide ending in LayNetPH. Please sign up no later than 1 hour prior to the hearing. Once you successfully sign up, you should automatically receive an email with instructions as well as a personalized meeting link or phone number you can use to join the Zoom call the day of the meeting. If you do not receive an email with a Zoom link, please email dlnr.aquatics@hawaii.gov for assistance. If you do not sign up to testify at least 1 hour prior to the hearing, or if you do not have internet connectivity or the necessary equipment to testify via Zoom, we will have an in-person host site on every island where you can show up in person to provide public testimony. The location of these in-person host sites are listed here. Additionally, if you are unable to attend the public hearing, you can provide written testimony no later than Friday, September 9th, 2022, via email to dlnr.aquatics@hawaii.gov or via postal mail to the address listed on the slide. Mahalo for joining. If you have any questions, please feel free to email or call DAR using the information on this slide.